Alright, good morning. I'm going to be doing a video with the intention of adding it to YouTube. I've got a new YouTube channel. My last three have been stricken off. I had to start a new one. But what I normally I put all my videos on BitChute, but this one's for YouTube as well. So everyone from BitChute, hi. Sorry if I'm going over anything again, but anyone on BitChute, I'm on YouTube. I'm doing this because I'm trying to get to the bottom of what's going on with the Dutch farming protest from an environmental standpoint. Because there's some really confusing things going on. And what I've noticed is that there's very little information on YouTube. If I search for it, then it's coming up with things 2 weeks old. There's very little trying to explain it in any sort of scientific notion. So, so what we got here is the sort of the Great Reset elite environmentalist agenda cracking down on the farmers in Holland. I've been to Holland, to the Leeuwarden. What's it called? There's another part of Holland that's not quite Holland. It's sort of separate. Anyway, it doesn't matter. And I do remember. Okay, I did environmental science stuff, ecology, and environmental engineering as a degree and as a career. So since the farming issues have started in the world, it's connected with Sri Lanka, the Great Reset. Um, Over the last 2.5 years, there's been a significant issue with echo chambered ideas and the way people sort of approach um, their opinions, and it's often really uneducated, but people still having strong opinions. I always try and get to the bottom of things and find out the nitty gritty details, and then look for evidence that confirms or refutes everything, whether it's conspiracy or science and so on. It's not an easy job because often you can be living with two potential realities, and it can take a while to figure out what is actually going on. Sometimes it ends up being the conspiracy was right. Sometimes it's the science was right. So what's going on with the farming thing? This is the issue. What I'm consistently seeing is a confusing. There's a very confusing thing going on because they're talking about nitrogen emissions. And I've gone and made a mistake. So this is a good opportunity for me to say if I find out I'm wrong, then I update my information, which is something people sadly don't do. This is one of those cases I've really missed a point. I've knee-jerk reaction into something because people kept talking about nitrogen emissions. And that's the issue. They want to restrict nitrogen fertilizer because of nitrogen emissions. And my immediate thought was, but nitrogen is 75% in the atmosphere. Nitrogen isn't considered a greenhouse gas. Nitrogen doesn't emit as a polluting thing. And just thought, no, that can't. If there's some rules coming from the green agenda saying stop chemical nitrogen fertilizers, it cannot be because of emissions of nitrogen, because that's not a thing. And then I thought to myself, well, no, it's. Let's quickly. How do they make chemical nitrogen fertilizers? They use natural gas. That's what it is. And I did that to myself. I was like, oh, that's what they want to restrict the use of um, natural gas and fossil fuels, so they want to stop that. That's the issue. And I was wrong. I was wrong. Um, and a friend was posted about this nitrogen emissions. I was like, right, I'm gonna have to tell everyone to stop saying it's about nitrogen emissions. It's not. But I thought I'll double check with research first, and then found out what was really going on. But it's leading to more confusion. It's about nitrogen oxides as a pollutant, and it sounds like they can be both the form of ammonia. Ammonia is NH4, which is the fixed it's the usable kind of nitrogen which plants can use. Um, in intensive agriculture near water sources, when excess nitrogen fertilizer is used, that can then wash off into rivers. That gives it extra nutrients for algal blooms. That starves the rivers of oxygen, and that causes dead rivers and stuff. I did something called the Countryside Survey in 2008, which is where in the UK, a huge group of us scientists went around the country doing these random squares all over wherever they were, on mountaintops or by rivers or everywhere, and detailed mapped the habitat and counted the biodiversity, looked for all the species, and mapped it, and then compared that data with a group who'd done it 8 years previously. And we could then we're looking at exactly the same spots down to the meter, and then saying what is the change. So is there more hedgerows? Is it there used to be a hedgerow here, now there isn't? There used to be 20 flowers in this square. Now there's only 5. That's kind of so you could. It built up a picture of what was changing in the countryside all across the UK, and the trends we saw were alarming. Reduction, like hedgerows, which are so important, are disappearing. Ponds disappearing. Biodiversity around fields were disappearing. Um, and there was each group, each team of us that were going around surveying had one who specialised in water, in the water systems, and that was where we really saw the damage being done. And it is largely attributed to pollutants from intensive agriculture. And I don't say that lightly. I'm assuming most of you have all tried to go to rivers, and especially in places like England, river water quality is bad, and it's largely a result of intensive agriculture. And I remember when I was in Holland, looking across the fields from the train and thinking it's just field, field, field of dead grass, wall to wall, and I can imagine there'd be nothing living in the rivers there. You know what I mean. You've seen rivers that are just like the wrong color. There's no fish there, and so on. So I think what I'm trying to say is there is an issue with nitrogen pollution from intensive agriculture. So from a realistic point of view, there is an issue. So what have we got? We've got the Great Reset, Green Agenda, trying to say save the environment, and it's at loggerheads with human needs. And this is something we all need to face up to. This is the issue we are facing, and it's been my specialty because I care about people, I care about the environment. You need to protect the environment. It's just protect the lifeboat to protect the people. But what we're seeing now with all this crisis going on with this and everything is we're now coming as we reach limits to resources and so on. We're coming to loggerheads, and we need to find engineering solutions, environmental engineering solutions that allow us to thrive while also allowing nature to thrive. I think everyone can agree with that. But when people are in a state like this, societally, with inflation and shortages and expense, people stop caring so much about the damage that's being done. They just want to be able to survive. Am I right? Okay. So people are happy to take extreme views based on their bias of what they need. Can we agree on that? Okay. People in positions of, how it tends to be greenies, the greenies who are like protect the environment tend to be doing okay, don't they? You'll find that people in poverty don't really give a shit about whether the turtles are dying or the plastic bags are in the ocean. They're just busy trying to survive. Agreed? So, and of course, then you've got who are all the people pushing green agendas and stuff. It's millionaires who don't. They claim to give a shit, and then they will actually be like, oh, we do care about the forest, but then they forget about the damage that they're doing with all their flying and so on, right? So my point here is about people's cognitive bias and how much they care or not. I'm sure I'm guilty of it too, subconsciously, caring so right now. Care so much about these people who are suffering and being murdered because things, but then when was the last time I cared about people in Yemen? It's not on my radar. Why would I care? Even though it's probably my government that are giving bombs for that. So we're all guilty of that. We're all hypocritical. We're all human, right? But what's important here? One of the things that's inspired me this morning is some comments that people were talking about how about we all need to come together. And my immediate thought was, I've spent 2.5 years through this labeling people into groups: spiritualist, religious, conspiracy, official science. And everyone's got their extreme outlook and viewpoint on reality to justify their worldview. There's camps, and they all have very opposing opinions. Almost every single thing we've got going has 2 opposing camps. So with COVID, you've got people who are afraid of the jab, you've got people who are afraid of the virus. With climate, you've got people who are terrified of the planet boiling to death, and you've got people who think it's all a big scam and a hoax to depopulate the planet. And there's very little, in order for everyone to come together and work together, you have to have a holistic viewpoint and try and take into account all the different aspects. And something I'm sort of specialized, always work towards is, I don't know where this comes from, but trying to get people to work together, and you say, okay, those people over there have this problem, those people over there have the argument against that, and they're mad. Where is the thing that will make us all agree. So with COVID, for example, there were people who didn't want the jab, and there were other people who wanted everyone to get the jab because they were scared of the virus. And so my immediate focus from day one, researching every day, was what can we do that wins over the viral issue but doesn't need the injection? And found answers straight away. But it's been amazed how, because of the extreme views, everyone polarized and refused to focus on those things. And everyone missed a trick because of that. If everyone had found a way to come together in a middle approach, it would have worked. Back to the Dutch farming protest. So this is where I've been confused. So it turns out that actually the justification for these limiting farms using nitrogen fertilizer is because of nitrogen pollution, which is actually an issue. And my understanding of that is that yes, when you have intensive agriculture near waterways, then the excess runoff causes trouble and destroys the riverways, which are very important. That can even get to oceans, which can then start, you get dead zones in the oceans. It's a big issue. 30% of the planet depend on ocean life, for their staple diet. Now, back when I was doing environmental stuff, the discussion was always that how do you need to get intensive animal agriculture away from waterways, and so buffer zones were a thing, where they paid farmers or made rules that they're not allowed to farm near a ditch or a stream or so on, and that created a space in the soil where the excess nitrogen could be absorbed. And I can't see anyone discussing this stuff. I'm like, if I've looked into the environment stuff, and yes, they're saying that the intensive agriculture in Holland, something like apparently 4 times more intense in terms of the number of animals per hectare than anywhere else in Europe. So okay, so it's definitely it's a highlight of the problem of intensive agriculture. And I want to know, are they doing their plan to solve it is just stop nitrogen fertilizer? And I'm confused by that. But I'm thinking, are they doing the things? I can understand why they would say reduce if it's 4 times more intensive. I can understand why they're saying reduce the intensive agriculture. But here's what's confusing me. There's a shortage of fertilizer problem. Crop yields are down. There's a food shortage crisis coming. 30% less food available on the planet now, which is going to cause major mass starvation and so on. But why do cow farmers need nitrogen fertilizer? There's a paradox here. The reason intensive agriculture with cows pooping everywhere means there's so much good nitrogen fertilizer all over the soil everywhere because the cows are intensively pooping the hell. And then when it rains that so much of it, and it's all concentrated, that there's excess, which goes off into the water. And it's nitrogen, it's ammonia, it's good fertilizer stuff, but it's so rich in fertilizer, it's going into the water and causing the trouble. Apparently that's the problem. But wait a minute, look over here. There's people saying there's not enough nitrogen fertilizer. And what's over here? There's too much nitrogen fertilizer. Wait, what's the problem again? We've got to stop using... And here's the other thing. Nitrogen fertilizer is used for crop growing. Do cow farmers use fertilizer to grow their cows? Why? Why do cows need nitrogen fertilizer? Because that's what they're saying. We've got to reduce the number of animals. We're not allowed to use nitrogen. Is this 2 separate issues here, or am I missing something? The cow, when you have animal agriculture like cows, you get lots and lots of nitrogen fertilizer. Why do the cow farmers need nitrogen fertilizer? Or is this 2 separate issues? You've got crop agriculture, which depends on nitrogen fertilizer, could be stopped, and you could use other things like urine, human urine instead, which stops us using gas, which allows more gas to be used in the winter because of the Russia issue and so on. But that's another issue. But do you see where I'm going with this? The issue seems to be simultaneously stop using nitrogen fertilizer. Everyone's complaining we need the nitrogen fertilizer. And then the justification is there's too much nitrogen fertilizer. Can someone explain to me what's going on? There's got to be a solution in here somewhere. So first of all, I think my advice would be this. Everyone needs to stop saying nitrogen emissions. It's nitrogen oxide emissions. Now, from my understanding, it's not so much about going to the atmosphere. They say it can makes smog and so on. Okay. But it's about the destruction to the rivers, which can be solved with buffer zones. Next, okay, so the intensive agriculture, which is an issue, and it would be worth trying to consider reducing the number of having more, what do you call it, this holistic based farming, grass fed and so on. Yes, yes, yes. But if there's so much nitrogen and there's a nitrogen crisis, why don't we just have the rules that the intensive agriculture cows, people go around and pick up the poop and sell it as nitrogen fertilizer to the people who need nitrogen fertilizer, and that way it's not going into the river and there's not a nitrogen fertilizer crisis. What's going wrong here? Someone put me in charge, please. Put. All right. So do you understand why I'm all over this stuff and I'm confused what's going on? And I guarantee you, most people with an opinion on the internet are completely confused. But then, if you go into conspiracy side of it all, the Great Reset, New World Order plan that's coming through the door, which I'm totally not on board with. I mean, I agree, I understand that that's all going on. Yes, Agenda 21 was part of my studies at university. I've been watching this stuff unfold for a decade or so. And they say what's going on is they're trying to grab the land. They're trying to make it untenable for the farmers and then seize their lands. And the idea is, because of all this huge immigration that's been going on for years and years, to try and build housing for immigrants. Okay. Now they say it's a land grab. There should absolutely no way legally that governments can seize the land. I mean, I understand buying the land off the farmers, but seizing it? Is that right? And then when you say, well, why? There's not enough housing for immigrants. I know I helped out at the Dunkirk immigration the jungle camp that for all these Syrian immigrants and Eritrean immigrants trying to get into the UK. I went to help out to build a women's shelter there. So I'm aware of this immigration problem, and there is a potential, of course, that with mass food starvation coming later this year, which I watch survival channels and that sort of geopolitical news stuff all the time, and what's going on it's my biggest concern right now. It's no longer COVID, it's this mass food issue, and this is why I'm so focused on this nitrogen food farming question. But we can expect to see potentially devastating levels of mass migration, because these food shortages are really hitting home now as a result of the mismanagement of COVID in the poorest countries. And of course there's going to be millions, if not tens of millions of people. So is that what it's about? Is it about predicting and trying to deal with the fact that there's going to be huge mass migration? And often my thoughts are things like, well, they should be building mini houses, eco mini houses for people, which actually can be really comfortable. People think of, because at the jungle camp where I was, they would just put people in shoeboxes. But I'm currently living in the woods, practicing my skills in sort of survival and solar and engineering the environment, and having an absolutely lovely time of it. I'm not paying bills for stuff. I've got free water, free sunshine, free electricity. Got all my food stocked up. So I'm kind of doing this. If we're going into the Great Reset, you'll own nothing, be happy. People struggling, survival and prepping. I'm sort of doing that stuff so I can be educational about it and hopefully help some people, while also benefiting myself and having a lovely time with me and my dogs. What was my point? I'm constantly thinking solutions. And something I've often thought about when it comes to things like homeless in cities. I know homeless people need to stay near city centres to get the money and the busking and so on, but I had a lovely time for 5 years. Built a little log cabin out of waste wood, got solar, and was really comfy in there. And then you hear about issues with farmers struggling to get the crops productively and so on, and then unemployment. And then you hear about people who want to they don't want all the crazy to happen, the traumatized, and society sort of being crazy. And everyone's dream is like, can we just live in a little happy log cabin, and grow vegetables in a little community? So and from an idealist standpoint of these kind of people, you get these memes saying, would you take $1 million to live in this house with no Wi-Fi? Yeah, I'd live in a ditch for $1 million with no Wi-Fi, quite happily for a month. You know what I mean? but I've got this envisioned dream of like it is actually ideal for little farm community stuff to go on. And so, do we not have an opportunity here? Enterprise, sort of zeitgeist movement, sort of things, where people are growing. You have like little community. So one big farm at the moment would be like one big farmhouse, one tractor, mass producing intensive agriculture. But what if it was 20 people living in little mini houses with solar panels and everyone helps out on the land and has a job and a small income and security of somewhere to stay? Um, and we're achieving all those goals of productivity, more organic, community, more peace, the children there playing together. It's a hippie happy kind of notion, but it's like it ticks all the boxes. But I'm a dreamer. I'm a dreamer. But can you see where I'm going with this? I'm very much aware of the impending sort of traumatization and collapse of society if we don't get everything right. And over the last 2.5 years, I've hopefully demonstrated again and again and again how my focus has been on solutions, which have then been ignored. And every time they get ignored, society gets worse. And if you're new to my YouTube channel, literally there have been things available since 2020 that could stop this. I keep doing videos about early treatments, and there's actually 99% solutions out there that could just have ended the whole COVID thing 2 years ago. And for 2.5 years, everyone's been arguing about everything about COVID, every detail, filling up the airwaves with stuff. And in reality, there was something that just stopped. There was an answer all the time. There has been. I mean, for me, that's been like watching 2 months as a huge mansion full of people and children slowly burning down, and everyone's fighting about where the exits are and whether you should fight the fire or not, or whether fire exists or not. And all the time, there's like 20 fire extinguishers sitting on the wall, and absolutely no one will even acknowledge that they even exist. And I'm there standing watching everyone divide and separate and traumatize and shout and argue about everything. And I'm just like, but fire extinguisher. And and everyone's like, we need solutions. I'm like, fire extinguisher. No answers, no replies. And that's actually gone on for 2.5 years with COVID. And because people haven't decided to focus on solutions, the world's falling apart. Society's falling apart. It's horrific. But there was answers. But nobody wants the answers. And because I'm a problem-solving kind of guy, it's driven me insane to the point I'm now alone living in the woods looking like a crazy guy. But I'm happy. I've turned what is an issue of no house, can't pay bills to fine. I'll just engineer my environment. And now I'm happy. The people I'm working for are happy. Everyone's happy. So I think I'll end there. And I'll try and keep adding. I'm trying to think of a theme for the YouTube, because I got kicked off YouTube lots for trying to solve problems in terms of immunology that didn't involve injections, and the powers be wanted injections. So that's an issue. YouTube, if you're reviewing my video, can you give me feedback on how you think that was, and whether you're going to contact me again about how my comments and videos are offensive to society, when in fact I'm sitting here trying to save people, save the environment, solve giant global issues. And if you think my opinions are dangerous to society, I suggest you check your standard, your community standards. So if trying to stop people dying, trying to stop people starving is offensive to your community standards, then please get me in touch with Klaus Schwab so I can have a little word with him, since he seems to be your master, YouTube. Okay. Is there anything else to talk about? I've endeavored for 2.5 years with a plan, an idea, which is to get the ideas in my head to become public knowledge. And that is the one thing that powers that be absolutely refuse to do. In the last week, I've done videos showing, for example, how in a month, if everyone had the information and the leaders or decision makers, Germany's going into a massive crisis with energy. And they've actually got the tools sitting on their land, ready to go, which will solve the problem that they're going to have to ration 30% of gas, because that's what they're saying. They're going to have to start rationing and reduce gas use in Germany by 30%. Now, I'm sure other countries around Europe are going to have these issues too, and it's going to happen because of restrictions from, um, well, Russia and various other things. And I've done a video clearly explaining that I've investigated into how to make solar panels 30% more efficient, or much more efficient, that the way solar panel farms are set up are wrong and not efficient, that university students have just released a new article sort of pointing out the problem and the solution, but still doing it wrong. And then I've done a video going, these guys have just pointed out the problem and then tried to come up with a solution. Here's what I'm telling you is that I solved this problem decades ago during my my research. And if I could get my information to policymakers, and because everyone's panicking about energy crisis and people are actually going to starve and freeze to death because of this, if my information was discussed on and as much as everyone discussed Johnny Depp or COVID or something, then overnight could fix all of that trouble. And in an ideal world, that video or information I had would already be being discussed now by environmental leaders and being implemented now. And within a month, that would save thousands of lives and save millions in revenue and reduce carbon emissions and create thousands of jobs. But the information I have doesn't get past the people I'm doing videos for. And the people I do the videos for then don't even ever reply back and say that's a good idea or thank you or how can we help you to get that information onto the world stage. And my only thoughts on that is that everyone listening to me just does it for the likes and no one's actually interested in stopping millions of deaths, saving billions of pounds, helping the environment and helping people. And I can only conclude that we're living in a world of idiocracy. But then what's new? Because the same thing happened with COVID. Everyone died and suffered and society collapsed and stuff simply because everyone didn't want to do solutions. So that's where we are. So if you're a new subscriber to YouTube and you think this information might be useful, if you leave comments on the topics of something you're interested in me talking about, so we can do the solutions to COVID, environmental science, Agenda 21, the conspiracy side of all this green agenda, things like the heat wave, climate change issues and questions, solar, how to live off-grid, anything to do with sort of surviving and the potential apocalypse that's coming. I like to share information for people, one, to come together and understand reality, not anything extreme, and help people and the environment at the same time. And I seem to be the only one trying to do that. So if you got any particular topics you want me to discuss, pick a subject, anything, and in those fields, and I'll happily introduce a video. And because it's YouTube, I'm going to have to be careful what I say and not swear. Normally I'm swearing and angry and shouty, but because it's YouTube, I'm being very polite. So I'm going to leave it on one note, which is about the way people are reacting to the incoming heat wave and discussions about climate change and climate change hoax. And I gotta laugh at the way this is going on, because for years you've got a whole bunch of people saying climate change stuff's all a hoax, the temperature isn't going up, it's actually stable or going down, and that's all perfectly natural. Most intelligent people say we acknowledge it's going up, and we can almost say it's anthropogenic, but we don't quite know. But we can see it's going up. But people are against this notion because they see it as a big scam by corporations and the evil agenda. Do everything they can to try and convince people of that using science. And the funny thing is when they post graphs going, look, the temperature's staying the same. But when you look at those graphs, like say for example, medium maximum temperature for England over the last 50 years, it goes like this. And if you draw a line through the middle, the line, if you start at the start, it's at 15 degrees, and if you go at the end, it's at 16 degrees. And it is actually going up. But these people are posting graphic evidence trying to say, look, it's not changing. And you're like, no, look at it. It is. That's the point. It's gone up by 1 degree, which is a medium and it actually makes a difference. Now, I listened to someone called Bjorn Talks, who's a really intelligent guy from Norway. And it's worth a look into what he's saying about, because they're having forest fires and heat waves. Here in Portugal, we're having forest fires and heat waves. I mean, I've been living through 45 to 46 degrees for the last 4 days and sleeping outside often because it's so hot at night. But what's happening in the UK is declaring a red alert because it's going to hit 40. Now it's saying 41, which almost guarantees it's going to get to 40, which is the hottest temperature ever recorded in the UK. But there are all these people who are saying, temperature's not going up, temperature's not going up, temperature's not going up. And now today, we're going to get this really pinpoint moment where the hottest temperature recorded in British history is going to happen. It's going to be 2 degrees more than the last record, which kind of nails it in the head of, okay, can we all agree now the temperature's going up? And when you get to 40, it really getting into the realm of dangerous, because in Britain, when you have things like people not being prepared, not used to it, melting roads, melting railways and stuff, you've got a potential for disaster there for a lot of people if they're not informed about this. The news are giving warnings about this, and the people who are anti-climate, say climate change is a hoax, are desperately running around the internet saying the stupidest things. They're complaining that the map is red just to be dramatic. They say the news is scaring people, not sensibly warning people, and saying it's just more fear-mongering. But what's hilarious is this. All this time they said the temperature's not going up, the temperature's not going up, and now the temperature is going to hit hottest ever. What are they saying? They've switched. Now they're all running around the internet going, it's just summer, it's just summer, it's just summer, it's just summer, it's just a heat wave. Look, we've had heat waves. Heat waves are normal, It's like, yeah, we know heat waves are normal, but we've never had one this hot. But they're avoiding that because they spent the last decade shouting on the internet about how temperature wasn't going up. Now temperature's going up and we're going to have demonstrable proof. Suddenly they're going to forget that they said that the whole time, and now they're like, heat waves are normal. And next you can have 10,000 dead people. They'll switch to saying, people die all the time, people dying's normal, people dying's normal. And they will continue in that cognitive bias until everybody's dead. But they think they're doing the world a favor, and they're not. They're not. Now, I try and have time for these people because they're very good at collecting data and opposing any criminality that is actually going on with false news and science, but they're really not good at updating their information. And it's hard for me to interact with these people when they can be so demonstrably idiotic. If there's a 40-degree heat wave actually coming, it does confirm the temperature's going up and that it's worth warning the public about. But what they're saying is they're going to forget they said temperature wasn't going up, and we shouldn't be warning everyone. It's just summer. So what I'm hoping today is that Britain totally collapses under the strain of the heat with human consequences, and then wait to see what they've all got to say about that. See if they're proud of themselves. Because it really will reveal what kind of human beings they are. Whether they actually do care about truth and environment and solutions, or whether they just do it for the likes and the drama. Because we don't have time for that. There's enough actual drama going on to have people attention seeking just for drama. So there you go. I'm going to finish there. So welcome to my channel, YouTube. YouTubers. I can't figure out how to make a good name for this channel. And my last 2 channels, like I said, kept getting taken off and banned because I was trying to teach people about immunology, the natural way. But if you do want to find more, I have a BitChute channel, which you have to log into BitChute, subscribe, and then log in and type Forest Finder, all one word. And you'll find about 1,000 videos on there over the last 2 years explaining all about every aspect of COVID and how we could have fixed it and didn't have to destroy the society as a result of the quest for the jab. So there you go. All right. Again, my name is Will Thompson. I'm here to try to save you, your family, and the environment at the same time with solutions. The one thing that no one seems to want to do, because we're living in idiocracy, and as you know, the
normal guy found himself living on a planet of idiots, and they were putting Kool-Aid on the plants, and everyone was going to starve to death because no one could solve problems. And we're doing Idiocracy meets Hunger Games right now, and I'm here going, well, let's give this a go then. So you all take care, and my catchphrase these days is have a good apocalypse. Ciao for now.